The diner on station C-47 was never truly quiet. It floated like a tired old heart in the middle of the busy trade lanes, beating slowly but always alive. Ships of every shape and size docked nearby, sleek luxury cruisers, rusted cargo haulers, warships that still smelled of battle. The air outside carried the hum of engines, the buzz of machinery, and the endless chatter of thousands of travelers passing through. Inside, the diner was different. It smelled of spiced broth and hot metal from the kitchen. Neon lights flickered lazily against the curved glass windows, trying their best to hide the cracks in the walls. Old music played from a radio in the corner, something soft and half-forgotten. For many, this place was just another pit stop. But for Zira, it was her world. Zira worked as a waitress. She was young by her people's standards, though she already felt older than the stars. Her scales shimmered faintly silver under the light, though years of carrying heavy trays had dulled their shine. Her sharp claws were wrapped in soft gloves to avoid scratching the cups she served. Her long tail flicked quietly whenever she was nervous, which meant it moved often. She had been at the diner since she was barely grown. She had seen smugglers counting stolen credits under the table, merchants boasting about their riches, bounty hunters polishing weapons, even diplomats in shining robes pretending to be humble while demanding the most expensive meals. Zira had learned to smile at all of them, to serve the food, take the payment, and never ask questions. But nothing prepared her for that day. The bell above the diner door rang. Zira turned, expecting another traveler, perhaps a scaled trader from the southern systems or a tired pilot looking for a cheap drink. Instead, the figure who stepped inside made her tray almost slip from her hands. A human. The word slammed through her mind like thunder. Her throat tightened, her tail froze mid-sway. She blinked once, twice, just to be sure her eyes weren't lying. But no, it was real. A human had walked into her diner. The man looked ordinary at first glance. He wore a dark jacket, patched at the elbows, with a small pack slung over one shoulder. His hair was a little messy, his boots scuffed from travel. His face carried a calm, tired smile, the kind you see on people who've been walking too long but still keep moving. His eyes, though, were different. They were bright, burning with a quiet fire. Humans were not supposed to be here. Not anymore. Zira remembered the stories whispered across the galaxy. Humans were fragile, living only a short handful of years compared to most species. Their bodies burned fast. Their lives cut even shorter by wars, disasters, and their own reckless bravery. Many believed they should have been gone long ago. A flame that flickered too bright and too fast. Even Zira's people, who measured their lives in centuries, pitied them. And yet, here he was, alive, breathing, smiling as if the galaxy itself didn't scare him. The human walked calmly to the counter and sat down. He looked around the diner as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "Something hot, strong, and not likely to kill me," he said in a voice both gentle and steady. Zira swallowed hard. Her hands trembled as she picked up a cup. She tried to remind herself she was just a waitress, that this was just another customer. But her heart beat too fast. Her chest ached with something she couldn't name. She poured the drink carefully, the steam rising between them. When she placed it before him, her voice cracked without warning. "Wait, already again?" The words escaped her lips before she could stop them. The human blinked in surprise, his eyebrows lifting. "Sorry?" Zira stared at him, her claws curling against the counter. She didn't mean to speak, but the shock was too heavy to hide. Her memories rushed back, the memory of another human long ago. A different man, scarred but kind, who had sat in that very same seat. She had served him too. And he had told her something she never forgot. "One day another of us will come. Maybe not me, but one of us. You'll see." That had been decades ago. She had believed she would never see it happen. She had believed humans were gone, their sparks burned out, and now, another stood before her. Her throat tightened again, her scales shimmering with emotion she didn't understand. She gripped the counter to keep herself from falling. The human only smiled, as though he had no idea of the storm raging in her chest. And for Zira, the world no longer felt the same. The human lifted the steaming cup with both hands, blowing softly at the surface before taking a slow sip. He smiled, a small, ordinary smile, as though nothing in the galaxy was strange. But for Zira, everything had stopped. Her tail twitched. Her heart pounded. She leaned closer, her voice trembling. "Wait, already again?" The human looked up at her with confusion. His eyes were steady, curious, almost amused. "Sorry, what do you mean?" Zira's claws tapped the counter nervously. She felt her scales heat with embarrassment, but the words tumbled out anyway. "I served one of you before. Decades ago. A human, I was told. You don't live long. Your lives burn so quickly. How can you be here again so soon?" The human set down the cup gently. His expression softened. For a moment, he said nothing. He only studied her as though trying to measure her heart. Then, with a quiet chuckle, he shook his head. "That wasn't me. That was my grandfather." The sound of that word, grandfather, echoed through Zira like a bell. Her claws curled tighter against the counter. Her chest ached. Memories she had buried long ago rose up like ghosts. She remembered. The first human she had served had been older, scarred across his face, but kind in his smile. He had laughed at her nervousness, had tipped her not in credits but with small round tokens. Earth coins, he had called them. At the time, she thought it was foolish. Yet she kept them, hidden away in a drawer. One coin still remained, scratched and faded, but she never had the courage to throw it away. She remembered his words, too. Words spoken with a fire that stayed in her heart even as the years slipped past. "We don't last long, but that's why we matter. One day another of us will walk through your door. Count on it." Zira's throat closed. Her vision blurred with sudden tears. She had thought those were just kind words meant to comfort her young, curious self. She had thought the galaxy had stolen humans away forever. But now, here one sat before her. The grandson, Zira whispered, her voice breaking. "You look just like him. Not the same, but still, the same fire in your eyes. The same way of smiling. How is it possible?" The human tilted his head slightly, considering her. His gaze was gentle, but there was steel under it. "Maybe because we carry them with us. The ones who came before us. My grandfather told me stories about this place. He said a kind waitress with silver scales served him once, and that I should look for her if I ever came this way." Zira gasped softly. Her hand flew to her chest where her heart beat too fast. "He remembered me?" "Of course," the human said. "Humans, we don't forget the people who touch our lives." Even in the smallest ways, her knees weakened. She caught herself against the counter, her tail flicking hard. The galaxy told her humans were fragile, quick to die, lost to time before anyone noticed. Yet here was proof against that lie. They might vanish, but they left behind memories so strong they could live again in their children. She struggled to speak, her words barely a whisper. "But, why do you keep coming back? Your lives are so short. Don't you ever stop?" The human smile faded to something deeper, not sad, not joyful, but heavy with meaning. He looked down at the steaming cup, then back up into her eyes. "That's exactly why we don't stop. Life is short for us, so we run faster. We climb higher. We push harder. Every generation, we take the torch from the last and carry it further. That's how we live." The diner grew quiet. The background chatter of travelers faded to silence. Even the radio seemed to lower its voice. Others had begun to notice the conversation. Traders, pilots, strangers of many races, all listening, all watching. Zira's chest trembled. Her eyes burned. She wanted to argue, to tell him it was reckless, foolish, impossible. But deep inside, she already knew it was true. She had seen the same fire once before. Now she saw it again. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Your grandfather. He promised me someone would come. I never believed him. And yet here you are." The human nodded once, firm but gentle. He lifted the cup again, as though sealing the moment. "I told you. We carry each other forward. Always." For Zira, the room felt smaller, brighter, heavier all at once. She no longer saw just one human. She saw generations stretching behind him and ahead of him, like torches lighting the endless night. And in that moment, she realized something she had never truly believed before. Humans might live short lives, but their flame would never truly go out. Zira could not breathe for a moment. The words, "That was my grandfather," echoed again and again in her mind, refusing to fade. Her claws shook as she reached for the counter to steady herself. Her silver scales caught the neon light, flickering faintly like ripples on water. The human before her waited calmly, not pushing, not rushing, just sipping the hot drink as if he had all the time in the world. That calmness reminded her too much of another face, one she thought she had forgotten. Her memory dragged her back through the years. It had been decades ago when she was younger, nervous, and still clumsy with trays. The diner had been busier then, filled with the same strange crowd of travelers from across the stars. But on one ordinary evening, a man had walked in who was anything but ordinary. He was human. She remembered the shock, the way her heart had pounded even back then. He was older than the one before her now, scarred across the cheek, hair already gray, his jacket patched and worn. He looked tired but alive in a way she could not explain. His eyes burned like fire, even though his body looked fragile, like it might break if he leaned too far. He had ordered a simple meal, something hot and cheap. Zira remembered how her claws had trembled when she placed the bowl before him. He had noticed. Instead of laughing cruelly like some travelers did, he had smiled. A kind, warm smile that eased her heart. "Don't worry," he had told her, his voice soft but steady. "I won't bite. At least not unless you forget dessert." She had laughed nervously, embarrassed by her own fear. He had spoken to her kindly, asking her name, asking about the station, listening as though her words mattered. No one ever did that. To most customers, she was just a waitress with scales. But to him, she had been a person. Before leaving, he had pulled out a small round coin. Not credits. Something else. "It's from Earth," he explained when she tilted her head in confusion. "Old currency. Worthless now, except maybe for luck." He had pressed it into her palm with a gentle smile. "Keep it, and remember this. Even if I don't return one day, another of us will walk through this door. Count on it." At the time, she hadn't believed him. Humans lived so short, too short. Their kind scattered across the stars, always burning fast and dying faster. She thought his words were just a kind lie, a way to leave her with something brighter than goodbye. But she had kept the coin. She still had it hidden away in a drawer in her quarters, scratched and worn but real. Some nights, when the loneliness of her work pressed too heavy, she had taken it out and held it, wondering why she couldn't throw it away. Now she knew why. Zira's chest tightened as she looked at the man before her, the grandson. His face was not the same, his features younger, but the fire in his eyes was identical. The steady calm, the quiet smile, the echo of the man who had sat in the same seat all those years ago. Her voice cracked. He gave me something. A coin. He told me you would come, that another would walk through this door. I thought it was just words." The human tilted his head, curiosity sparking in his eyes. "He gave you one of his coins?" "Yes," Zira whispered. Her claws pressed against her chest where her heart pounded too fast. "I still have it." The human's lips curved into a small smile. Then he kept his promise. Her breath caught. She blinked hard, but the tears still came. For decades, she had thought of humans as fragile sparks, beautiful but doomed to fade. Yet this moment proved she had been wrong. They did not fade. They passed their fire forward from one life to the next, leaving a trail of light that never went out. Zira leaned against the counter, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. How do you carry it?" "The weight of such short lives. Don't you fear the end?" The human held her gaze, his expression steady. "Of course we fear it. But that's what makes every moment matter. That's why he smiled at you. That's why I'm here now. We don't have forever, so we live like every step matters. We remember. We pass it on." Her scales shimmered faintly under the neon glow, reflecting the warmth in his words. For the first time, Zira saw humans not as fragile sparks, but as something greater. They were fire. Brief, yes, but burning so brightly that even time itself could not fully erase them. And as she looked at the grandson, she realized the memory of his grandfather had not died. It was alive, sitting right here at her counter. The diner felt different now. The air was heavy, as if the station itself was listening. Zira's claws tapped faintly against the counter, her silver scales trembling with every breath. She could not escape the fire in the human's eyes, nor the ghost of memory he carried with him. For a long time, she said nothing. Then in a broken whisper, the words escaped. "Why? Why do you keep coming back? Your people are fragile. You live so short, so fast. And yet here you sit, smiling like the galaxy is yours. Don't you ever stop?" The human placed his cup gently on the counter. The steam curled upward between them. His hands folded together, steady and calm, before he lifted his gaze. There was no arrogance in his expression, no mockery, only a quiet strength. "That's exactly why we don't stop," he said. His voice was firm but gentle, carrying through the room. "Life is short for us, so we run faster. We climb higher. We push harder. Every generation, we take the torch from the last and carry it further. That's how we live. Zira swallowed, her throat tight. The words echoed like a drumbeat inside her chest. Run faster. Climb higher. Carry it further. They sounded simple, but they cut deep. Around them, the other travelers in the diner grew quiet. A scaled trader leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowed. A pair of insectoid miners paused with their drinks halfway to their mandibles. Even the old radio in the corner seemed to lower its soft song. Everyone listened. Everyone felt the weight of his words. Zira shook her head slowly. Her claws scraped lightly against the counter. But isn't it painful? To know your time is so short? To know you will lose everything before most of us even grow old? How do you bear it? The human leaned forward, resting his arms on the counter. His eyes softened, though the fire in them never dimmed. It is painful. Every goodbye hurts. Every loss leaves scars, but that pain is proof it mattered. We hurt because we love. We grieve because we lived something worth grieving. That's what gives it meaning. Zira's chest ached. She remembered her own people, who measured their lives in centuries. They walked carefully, spoke cautiously, avoided risk. They told themselves patience was wisdom, that safety was survival. But she wondered suddenly if it was just fear. Fear of the same pain this human embraced so openly. Her voice wavered. We live long lives. We are taught to avoid danger, to step carefully. We say it is strength, but maybe it is only hiding. The human tilted his head slightly, studying her with gentle curiosity. And does hiding make you happy? Zira froze. She wanted to answer. She wanted to say yes, but the words stuck in her throat, sour and false. Her life in the diner flashed before her. Hundreds of years of carrying trays, smiling politely, watching strangers come and go. Safe, predictable, and yet hollow. Her tail curled tightly around her legs. No, she admitted, the word trembling like glass. It doesn't. The human gave a small smile. Not triumphant, not mocking, but kind. Then maybe that's why we keep running. Because even if it hurts, it means we lived. It means we mattered. Her tears returned, shimmering across her silver scales. She lowered her gaze, her claws pressing against her chest where her heart beat far too fast. All her life she had thought humans reckless, doomed sparks. But now she began to see them differently. They were not doomed. They were defiant. Not sparks, but fire. Fire that burned, fire that spread, fire that refused to die. The silence in the diner was unbroken for several breaths. Every traveler stared, caught between awe and disbelief. The galaxy had always whispered that humans were weak, fragile, too quick to fade. But now even Zira felt the truth burning against her chest. She raised her eyes once more, voice fragile but steady. Your kind. You're not afraid of the end? The human lifted his cup once again. His smile was quiet, steady, unshaken. Of course we're afraid. But fear doesn't stop us. It drives us. And as Zira looked at him, this grandson carrying the light of another, she felt her world shifting. What once seemed fragile now felt unbreakable. What once seemed short now felt eternal. For the first time, she believed the human promise they would always return. Zira's chest was heavy. The human's words burned in her mind like sparks that would not fade. We hurt because we love. We grieve because we lived something worth grieving. She could not stop thinking about it. For her people, pain was something to avoid. Long lives meant patience, distance, caution. They did not rush, did not risk, did not leap. They waited, always waiting, safe but cold. Her claws tapped faintly against the counter as she whispered, You say pain gives meaning. But isn't it unbearable to lose family again and again? To watch your loved ones vanish before the galaxy even notices they were here? The human sat quietly for a moment. He did not look away. He let the question hang heavy in the air. Then with a slow breath he answered, It is unbearable sometimes, he said softly. There are nights when the silence feels endless, when the grief cuts deeper than you thought possible. But even then, I would not trade it away, because the love, the laughter, the memories, they are worth the pain that follows. The end does not erase the beginning. His words pressed against her heart. Zira trembled. Her people spent centuries avoiding grief, building walls so high they never let anyone close enough to hurt them. Was that truly living? Or just surviving? Her tail flicked nervously as she whispered, We tell ourselves we are wise because we wait. We measure time in centuries. But sometimes I wonder if we are only afraid to lose, afraid to feel. The human leaned forward, his voice steady. Maybe. Or maybe you've just forgotten what it means to risk. To leap. To burn bright, even if only for a moment. The room was silent. Every patron was listening now. A scaled merchant stared with wide eyes. The insectoid miners had lowered their tools completely. Even the music from the radio seemed to hush. The words of a single human, spoken in calm, simple tones, held the whole room in its grip. Zira's claws curled tightly. A part of her wanted to deny him, to argue that long lives meant strength. But another part, deep inside, knew the truth. She thought of the coin hidden in her drawer, of the promise made long ago, of the fire she saw burning again now. Her voice cracked. But doesn't it break you? Doesn't the grief destroy you? The human shook his head slowly. His eyes carried both sadness and strength. It does break us. But then we rise again. We don't stay broken. Every generation we stand back up. Every time we fall, someone else picks up the torch. That is how we endure. Zira's breath caught. She looked at him and saw not just one man, but the echo of thousands behind him. Generations of fire, passing light to one another, refusing to let the dark swallow them. Her scales shimmered faintly under the neon lights, reflecting the tears that slid silently down her cheeks. She whispered, "The galaxy calls you reckless, dangerous, doomed to burn out." The human's lips curved into a small, steady smile. "Maybe we are, but we would rather burn than fade." Those words struck her like lightning. Burn, not fade. Live, not hide. Defy the endless cold of the universe with the short, bright blaze of a single life. For the first time, Zira felt the weight of her own choices. Centuries of safety, centuries of walls, centuries of never daring to leap. And here sat a human, whose people lived less than a fraction of her years, yet who spoke of living more fully than she ever had. Her claws trembled as she clutched the counter. "I don't understand. How can you face such a short life and still smile?" The human raised his cup, his eyes burning bright. "Because every smile is precious when you know it won't last forever." The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy with meaning, thick with emotion. The travelers in the diner shifted, some looking away, some staring harder. Zira could not move. Her heart was a storm. She had always thought humans were fragile. Now she saw the truth. Fragile, yes, but unbreakable. Brief, yes, but eternal in their defiance. Sparks, yes, but sparks that lit fires across the stars. And as she looked at him, this grandson carrying the flame of another, she felt something inside her break apart and rebuild. For the first time, she wondered if her people, with all their centuries of caution, had been living less than these short-lived humans. The conflict inside her grew sharp, heavy, unstoppable. Her heart whispered the truth she did not want to admit. The humans were stronger than anyone had ever believed. Zira's body betrayed her. Her legs gave way beneath her, and she caught herself with trembling claws on the counter. Her silver scales shimmered under the neon lights, reflecting a storm she could not contain. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts. The diner around her seemed to blur, sounds fading, faces melting into shadows. All that mattered was the human sitting before her, the grandson carrying the light of another, carrying a legacy decades old. Her chest heaved. She felt the weight of years, the weight of memories, the weight of centuries she had spent hiding behind safe routines. And now it all crashed into one undeniable truth. Humans, though short-lived, were unstoppable. They burned, yes, but they passed their fire forward, and she was witnessing it, alive, here in front of her. She pressed her claws harder against the counter, fighting to stay upright. "Wait. Already again? I can't believe it." Her voice shook, barely a whisper. "Your grandfather, he's gone. And now you sit here speaking his words like nothing has changed." The human tilted his head. His eyes were gentle, calm, but underneath simmered a quiet strength that cut through Zira's despair. He reached slowly into his jacket pocket and pulled something small out. A coin, dull and scratched, edges worn smooth by decades. Zira's eyes widened. Her heart skipped a beat. She recognized it instantly. The Earth coin, the one she had kept hidden, the one she had stared at countless nights when the loneliness of her work pressed too heavy. She had thought she was the only one left who remembered it. Yet here it was, pressed into her hands again. "He made me promise," the human said quietly, "to bring it to you, to show that he kept his word." She recognized it instantly. The Earth coin, the one she had kept hidden, the one she had stared at countless nights when the loneliness of her work pressed too heavy. She had thought she was the only one left who remembered it. Yet here it was, pressed into her hands again. "He made me promise," the human said quietly, "to bring it to you, Zira's vision blurred. Tears spilled freely, sliding over the ridges of her scales. Her knees shook, but she didn't care. The coin was warm in her claws, heavy with meaning, with memory, with proof. Proof that humans did not fade so easily. Proof that fire once lit never truly went out. Her voice broke. I served your grandfather decades ago. I never thought I'd see this again. I thought it was just a story, just a memory, just nothing. The human shook his head gently. Stories aren't nothing. Memories aren't nothing. Every life, every spark we leave behind, it matters. And sometimes it comes back in ways you can't imagine. Her tail curled tightly around her legs. She pressed the coin to her chest, feeling a warmth she had not known in years. The diner's usual chaos faded into silence, leaving only the storm of emotion between them. Patrons stared quietly, sensing the power of what they were witnessing. This fragile, silver-scaled waitress, overcome by the legacy of a short-lived species that refused to die. Zira's voice was barely audible. I thought humans were sparks, burning too bright, too fast, and then disappearing. But now I see. You are fire. The human smiled softly. Not just me. My grandfather. His grandfather before him. All of us. We burn, yes, but we pass it forward. And every torch we carry lights the way for another. Zira lowered her gaze, trembling as if the weight of centuries pressed upon her. The coin felt heavier now. A symbol of everything she had doubted, everything she had feared, and everything she now understood. Humans were not fragile. They were unbreakable. They were fire, relentless and unyielding, refusing to be extinguished by time, loss, or grief. Her legs gave way completely, and she sank to the floor, clutching the coin like a lifeline. Her heart raced, her breath came in ragged gasps, yet in that collapse there was clarity. She understood now what her people could not. Strength was not measured in years, but in courage. Bravery was not in avoiding pain, but in choosing to face it, again and still move forward. Zira lifted her head, meeting the human's calm, unwavering gaze. She whispered, voice breaking but resolute, "You're kind. You'll never stop coming back, will you?" The human lifted his cup with a quiet, knowing smile. Not as long as someone is waiting at the counter. In that moment, the diner ceased to be just a place to serve food. It became a crossroads of legacies, a testament to the fire that refused to die. Zira understood, truly understood, that the galaxy was bigger than caution, bigger than fear, and that some sparks, no matter how brief, could light a flame that lasted for generations. And as she held the coin close, trembling but alive, she realized she would never see humans the same way again. They were fire. And fire could never truly be snuffed out. The diner was silent now, except for the quiet hum of the station outside. Zira sat on the floor, her claws still clutching the worn coin, silver scales shimmering faintly under the neon lights. She felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and awe, like she had carried centuries of truth in her chest all at once. She looked up at the human, the grandson of the one she had served long ago, and her heart swelled with something she could not name. You really carry all of them with you," she whispered. Her voice was soft, fragile, trembling. "All the humans who came before. Their fire, their lives. It's inside you." The human nodded slowly. "Yes, and not just me. Every human carries the ones who came before, and we pass it on to the ones who come after. That is how we endure. That is how we live." Zira's tail curled tightly around her legs. She thought of the many years she had spent serving travelers, watching life rush past her like a river she could not touch. She thought of her long, careful existence, her patience, her caution. And now she saw clearly how different strength could be. It was not measured by years. It was measured by courage, by fire, by the willingness to live fully, even when the world told you to shrink, to hide, to be small. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. "I've seen so many civilizations. I've watched species live for thousands of years. I've thought they were strong. But humans, you're different. Short lives, burning bright. Passing fire to the next, you're unstoppable." The human smiled, faint but warm. "We are fragile, yes, and we are short-lived. But every life we live, every love we give, every memory we leave behind, it adds to something bigger. We are small sparks, but together, we become a flame that the galaxy cannot ignore." Zira held the coin closer, tears spilling freely now. She thought of the first human who had given it to her, the one she had served decades ago. She thought of the grandson before her, And in that moment, she understood the truth she had been too afraid to face. Humans were not fragile sparks. They were fire. Fire that could pass through generations. Fire that could survive time. Fire that refused to be extinguished.